Let's go back to one of our top stories where the ANC NEC held a media briefing earlier this evening. The party discussed pressing matters facing both the organisation and the country, such as the impasse over the budget and trade relationships. The party has come out harsh against its GNU partner, the DA, for seeking to use the deadlock over the proposed 0.5 percentage points VAT hike to bargain for the reversal of redress laws. Political analyst Dr. Ongama Mtimka joins us now to unpack this. Dr. Mtimka, thank you so much for joining us and a very good evening to you. The trouble in this marriage of convenience started a very long time ago, probably already at inception. What do you make of what's transpiring now?
Yeah, no, it's a trying time for the government of national unity. And the issues are so fundamental that people are rightly concerned about the extent to which the parties, the main parties, are going to stick it out so that they find consensus. And there are concerns that the ANC might be luring other parties, particularly the economic freedom fighters, in order to help them go over the line here. Obviously, from a relationship point of view, we know that that would trigger a pressure point in the GNU, and the Democratic Alliance would take extreme exception to that. And it doesn't generally bode well for them as coalition partners to be going over murky waters like these.
So in terms of speaking to people outside or political parties outside of the GNU, specifically for this budget as well to be passed, the DA is saying that should the ANC do that, they basically, it's a vote of no confidence in the GNU within itself. But the ANC is saying, and I think it was Dr. Khozientu this evening at the briefing, who said, but look, there are no parameters in terms of who we can talk to. We can speak to parties outside of the GNU. Even before we formed the GNU, we invited all political parties to say we will have a conversation. So it's okay to actually have these conversations, but the DA does not see it that way.
Yeah, so I think for me, two things there. Does are the objective factors of the disagreement such that there are ways in which objectively these parties could come together and resolve the impasse? If you look at how the Minister of Finance, let me not say the ANC, the pressure that he has existing in a global political economy, international political economy, that is mainly neoliberal, in terms of which you've got people who trade your currency, people who trade your bonds, among other things. He has pressure to show that South Africa is prudent enough to try and manage the fiscal crisis that it finds itself in. On the other hand, so for example, attempting to increase VAT is a way to say, we are concerned about the deficit, but domestically, they don't want to do expenditure cuts that are significant and are going to raise the ire of trade unions as well as the average South African. So as a result of that, they are going for the constituency that they think, the option that they think is a path of least resistance. Now, from a Democratic Alliance point of view, when I was looking at the alternatives that they are proposing, there was nothing in the short term that allows the government to have significant amount of money and be able to deal with the deficit in a way that is, acceptable to the Minister of Finance, while at the same time not upsetting powerful interests, whether they be global or domestic. Now, their proposals, for example, around concessions, efficiencies in government, are not immediate. They're not going to, unless maybe they've projected and showed how much money would be availed to the fiscus as a result of that, they're a hard sell. Now, I think that beyond the political and economic and the dynamics about the fiscus, there are also concerns about power balances between these two parties. And I think that if the DA wasn't able to bring a compelling alternative from a fiscal point of view that brings enough money to the state in the short term, then they should have, in my view, accepted the reduced VAT when the ANC, when the Minister of Finance was going back the second time to Parliament to present the budget, or in fact, not create a stumbling block for themselves that's going to appear politically weak when they renege from it.
There's accusations, of course, being made on both sides. The DA is calling the ANC disingenuous on this, saying they're nitpicking when it comes to the Expropriation Act. It was actually a 13-page document that was given to the president that's outlining all kinds of things that can promote, growth in the economy. But as you're saying, not necessarily in the short term or immediately so. And that's the question that Parkstyle was asking at that media briefing, to say, but where will that money come from? Initially, when the budget was postponed, the DA had come out to say they were vehemently against it because of that proposed VAT increase and the impact it'll have on the poor. What are South Africans then to make when it's saying now that we may be able to accept some sort of a deal that includes a minimal VAT increase if you look at our policies?
Yeah, so the DA has a point as far as inclusion on economic management is concerned. By the way, if they think this is unique to them, allies of the ANC throughout the post-apartheid period have been concerned about the extent to which they can influence the ANC up to the level of macroeconomic policy, among other things. The SACP, COSATU, have been on that, in fact, debates about modifying the alliance, I'm forgetting the word that they use, have been precisely about the extent to which the alliance could have influence of government. Part of it has got to do with structural issues, such as, for example, the powers that are accorded to the Minister of Finance per se, that is that office, which gave it an impression of a prime ministerial role. Some of it were just political issues which the leftist allies of the ANC felt could be better managed in order for their voice to be heard. So the DA or any other party that's going to be in a coalition with the ANC are not, are not in a unique position, because both some constitutional principles and some political issues, that is managing the gaze of foreign players who are who have got serious consequences on our currency, among other things, have made it impossible for allies of the ANC to completely feel like they have control and influence over those aspects of economic policy. But I think that notwithstanding, the ANC does need to recognize that this is now a new, political environment in which economic policy is being undertaken. I think that what's becoming clear is that the DA doesn't feel that the deputy ministerial roles around economic cluster ministries, save for agriculture, are sufficient for them to make an impact. But maybe, Masa, not to hog the platform, my view is that the Democratic Alliance is making a serious mistake if it wants a frontal attack with the ANC around the economic policy issue. There's enough room in the public administration, a scheme of things, or for them to find areas in which they can make the greatest impact. And I think that for as long as they are anxious about the gaze from the outside in of their constituencies, they are going to always be trapped in these games of wanting to counter ANC maneuvers on the ideological front, when in fact they have a lot more to gain, not just in their own constituency, but in constituencies of the ANC, which is up for the taking as the ANC is suffering significantly around the issue of service delivery and efficiencies in government.
And, as we know, it's not the first time that we're seeing these two big political parties at loggerheads when it comes opposed to GNU. And quite often the question is this going to be what breaks the camel's back? Is this going to be the straw? Is it going to be the Bella Act and then the president going and saying, but look, we'll consult for a couple of more weeks? That appeases the Democratic Alliance a little bit, but comes back and implements it as is. Then comes with the Expropriation Act. The Democratic Alliance has an issue with that, but also, again, their concerns aren't then laid in there. And now we are here again with the budget, and it looks like it could be one of those turning points again. Is VAT going to be one of those issues that does break this relationship up ultimately? Or is it one of those things where we're watching again and it looks like it's going to happen, but it actually doesn't?
Sure. I'm sorry for the background noise of my dog there, if you can hear him. But here is the issue. I think that this space is opening up, this impasse is opening up space for other allies in the GNU to take leadership. If they don't, then the temptation to go outside the GNU is going to be stronger. And I think that it's not yet the best option to take, because whatever the ANC was trying to manage by creating this all-inclusive coalition, it's going to lose if it itself shows that it undermines the coalition sometimes. Because remember, what's causing jitters in market responses to either government bonds or the currency, if some of the movements from yesterday are anything to go by, are not necessarily that the economic policies per se are a concern for investors. It is the instability of the GNU itself that is a source of instability and concern. So as a result of that, if they act in a way that shows that even they themselves can undermine the GNU, it's going to confirm what is being feared the most by people who have got a vested interest in South African economy. And whether we like it or not, South Africa exists in an international system in terms of which its policy decisions, especially fiscal policy, attract responses that have got real consequences. No matter the radical views that say, no, we must do this, that, and the other, and you know, take our decisions autonomously, completely. We exist in a system, after all. So I think for me, there's a chance now for the veteran politicians in the rest of the GNU. I mean, you've got Anti-Pet, you've got Dr. Hlabisa, and people like Gating McKinsey and others, some of them in parliament, who actually should need to come around these partners and actually try and find a way to break an impasse, but they must also find what it is for the DA in this impasse that's going to be a source of victory. You can't want to humiliate your negotiating partner and still hope that you're going to retain the union for long.
Well, Dr. Mtimka, appreciate your insights this evening.